Welcome to Music Loop Podcast, brought to you by ASME SA Chapter. This is your very excited, happy, friendly podcast host, Chris Narraway. Music Loop is a podcast for people who want to reach out, connect and be inspired. Music Loop is designed to create a connection point for educators to support their involvement with music education. Whether you are a classroom practitioner or music specialist, this is an opportunity to reach out, offer support to others, ask questions and take action. Get involved in music education.
I'm Robbie Howard and I'm your host on today's episode of Music Loop, which is titled Sharing the Love. And our guest today is Susan Marshall. Susan is currently the classroom music teacher at Unley Primary School. She combines this role with being a committee member and presenter of the Orff Schulwerk Association of South Australia. She is a member of the National Music Teaching Mentoring Program and is involved in many other extracurricular activities and pastimes. She has a reputation among her peers as being a people person with a clever mind and is well regarded by them and by her work colleagues. Susan grew up in the country, surrounded by nature and music. She studied the piano and the violin, and after leaving school had a gap year in Thailand, where she was exposed to more music before completing a Bachelor of Education at Uni SA. When talking to Susan, her passion for music and for teaching is evident in her energy and her excitement, and for me this was quite infectious. I almost regretted the discarding of those dreadful piano lessons when I was a child. Maybe if I'd had a different teacher with a different system of learning, I might still be playing. Susan will talk today about her journey in the world of music and education, what keeps her going, her passion for professional development, some of the challenges and some of the highlights of her career. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you.
Susan, let's start at the beginning because I think that's really important as looking at your journey and maybe why you made that journey. So you come from a family of musicians.
We do. I've grown up in a very musical family. My father is the conductor of a country choir, and growing up, me and my cousins, we used to always sing. We've been a very strong Anglican family, so always experiencing music at church and things like that. I've got two brothers, one of whom learnt the drums and percussion, and another one grew up learning the trumpet. So we've always had music in our houses. Yeah.
And so that obviously started you on your journey as a music teacher. Whereabouts did you grow up?
My family, after Ash Wednesday in 1983, moved to Mount Burr, as my father was a district forester, so he got sent down to Mount Burr to help clean up after Ash Wednesday. So we lived at the forest headquarters. So growing up on a farm of trees was fantastic. Went to a small school called Mount Burr, open space school, and it was in year 3 that I started learning the violin through the instrumental music program, and at that time I also started learning the piano as well.
So as part of your, you're learning violin and piano. Did you have private lessons as well as
I learnt
school?
piano privately, but then violin lessons were through the school. So I started in about year 3 and then kept learning through the department system right up until doing violin in year 12. But it was really good learning the violin for, I think it was my first 3 terms, and then I was put in the Millicent Combined Schools Orchestra to play in the Christmas concert. So having that experience of playing as part of an ensemble right from the get-go was fantastic.
Okay, so you got to year 12 and then you had to work out what you were going to do then. What did you do?
I've found a poster that I wrote in about year 4 that said I wanted to be a primary school teacher. So I've only ever had that ambition in mind. After year 12, I always thought I would take a gap year. My older brother was an exchange student, and that made me think that I'd like to be one as well. So I applied and was successful and went to Thailand for a year. So I went there and had to go to school because it's a school exchange, lived with the host family, went to a Thai school, didn't know any of the language but came back a year later having learnt a new language and experienced a new culture. I also joined they had a Thai music group that I was interested in doing, and so I started learning one of their instruments over there, which was similar to a violin, called a saw duang, and I was part of their music group, which was quite unique because they'd never had a foreigner come and be a part of their music group.
So that was quite a cultural experience for you then, not only a new language, a new culture, but also a new instrument.
Very much so, and I did a few gigs with their Thai music group throughout the year, but a gig consisted of playing at funerals. So I can say that I played at about 4 funerals in my gap year in Thailand. That was great. But the school gifted me one of the instruments when I left at the end of the year, so that was really special.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so you came back to Adelaide?
Came back to Adelaide and started my Bachelor of Education junior primary / primary teaching at McGill, University of South Australia. Yeah.
So were you intending to become a classroom teacher, or did you always have the idea that you wanted to include music somehow in that education?
I guess I would always wanted to become a primary school teacher, but having grown up with music, I always thought it was something I would definitely include in being a primary school teacher. But at McGill, they had the McGill Band, which I'd heard about. This was students who chose to do a music subject were part of a band that then put together a show to tour around various schools and present to children. It then turned into what's now called the Music is Fun Band, which is still going today. So that was a great thing to be involved with at uni.
So that gave you an experience not only of including and continuing your music, but also presenting it and performing outside.
I was one of the singer lead presenters out the front, so it was great singing children's songs and engaging with audience and being part of a team ensemble playing. I took a couple of extra music subjects while at uni, and although it was a primary teaching degree, in the 4th year we had the option of either doing an honours 4th year, which meant that you didn't do a placement in a school, but I thought about that but then decided that I wanted to do a placement in a school, and so then I found a music teacher to do a placement with, so I got a little bit more qualification when it came to getting rated as a teacher at the end of your uni degree.
So it seems to me that you'd always had somehow that ambition to continue the music part of your education experience.
Yes.
And so where did you do the placement?
My final year placement I did with a teacher at Mercedes College, which was a good step in the door for learning what it's like to be a classroom music teacher. So I always had that in the back of my mind as something I'd like to do down the track.
And so you graduated?
I did, and I put, because I was from the country and had the experience of being away from home, I put everywhere in the state down to seek employment and found myself with a permanent full-time job at Freegon, which is in the Central Australia in the Uningal Pinjarra lands. So I went there as a graduate.
Another culture shock a bit, or was it as you anticipated?
At the time I'd had a couple of friends, older sisters working up there, so I'd heard a little bit about it and I thought, well, this will be a fantastic experience. I've lived in Thailand for a year. I can live anywhere, really. Yeah, so it was a great experience and I stayed up there for 3 years.
And in those 3 years, did you have the opportunity to continue that music part of your professional development or not?
No, I didn't do any music training as such up there. I incorporated a little bit of music into my classroom lessons, but didn't have the chance to do any music for me up there.
So I'm interested in why was there a barrier? Was it the fact that the curriculum up there didn't allow for you to bring that music component in?
I guess when I went up there as a classroom teacher, and there's a big focus on getting the kids to come to school and literacy and numeracy and all of those pressures, and being new to the teaching profession, I was still finding my way with learning how to teach. Having known what I know now about teaching music, I would have, given my time again, would have done a lot more music and incorporated that into all the other curriculum areas knowing what I know now.
Knowing what you know now.
Yeah, I just think I was young.
It's a good excuse. So 3 years in the APY lands.
Yes.
Then where?
I applied and won a job at a school called Westport Primary School in Semaphore Park. So this job was 2 days as the classroom music teacher and 3 days in a Year 3-4 class. So that was my foot back in the door to start to become a classroom music teacher, to pursue those interests.
So that was a conscious decision that you applied to that particular school because you knew about...
Yeah, I wanted to get into the music, or to start doing half and half.
And tell me a bit about that experience.
It was interesting coming back to the city after teaching in Freegon for 3 years. It was totally different. I felt like I was a beginning teacher again, just with the kids that you're teaching, and also learning about being a music teacher. I didn't actually know a lot.
So how did you find out?
When I was at uni, as part of our uni degree, we had to go and attend a CADI conference and an offshore work conference. So I was exposed to those two methodologies. We had to teach a few lessons at a school, and I was lucky enough to fill in as a recorder teacher at a school in Tea Tree Gully, and it was the music teacher there that was heavily involved with the Offshore Work Association, and she knew me. And then was a bit sad when I was going away for 3 years to teach up in the APY lands, but then when I came back to Adelaide, I went to an offshore work conference, I think in the first couple of weeks of term 1, and walked out of that conference on the committee.
Now, I'm not a music teacher or an educator, so tell me, when you talk about Kadaya and Orff, what are you referring to?
So offshore work is a methodology of teaching music which was developed by the German composer Karl Orff and his colleague Gunhild Kietmann, and it's an approach to music education involving singing, movement, dance, speech and instrumental work, and it's a very creative way to teach and learn music, and students can be involved at their own level. And I guess it's just an approach that I've latched onto because I really like playing lots of different instruments, and it's just found something that's really worked for me in my classroom teaching.
And it sounds to me as if it's something that you said that children at every level can be exposed to. So you're talking about early learning, that
Yes.
level, children maybe with special needs, that level, children who are in upper primary who have actually got other education in music, the whole kit and caboodle, basically.
Definitely. It's an approach that you can make as simple or complex as you want it, and it's very much a process of going from simple to complex. So you might start with speech and then add some body percussion and instruments and develop something that way, but you can always go back to make it more simplified for the abilities of the kids that you teach.
And is it easy to teach?
I'd like to think so. Anyone can learn.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that started you off. Would it be fair to say that sort of started you off onto a more formal way of knowing, having some structure
Yes.
around what you were doing, having resources, having people around that you could go to and say, hey, this is me, Susan, I need to know a bit more about this?
Definitely. Everything I've learned about being a music teacher has been from networking with other music teachers and attending conferences to learn more.
So lots of professional development.
Indeed, yes.
And putting your hand up to be on committees.
Yes.
And attending conferences.
Yeah, there's been a lot of conferences that I've attended over the last 18 years, yeah.
Is that something that you have had to do primarily yourself to fund those activities?
Yes, I have mostly paid my own way to go to conferences. My various schools have been really supportive and have let me go to a lot of conferences, but predominantly it's me wanting to improve my skills, get new ideas, network with other teachers. So I'm open to going to lots.
So to go back, you were at Semaphore, and then what happened after that?
So I was at Westport Primary School for 5 years, and then was lucky enough to win a position at Unley Primary School. and that was full-time music. So that was my decision to look for some, the direction that I wanted to go in was to be a classroom music teacher, not general classroom anymore. So it was a matter of me looking around to see what was available, and I was very lucky to win a job at Unley Primary School, and I've been here for the last 13 years now.
So what was it about Unley Primary School that sang to you?
The teacher that was here before me was a big Orff practitioner, so I knew that the classroom would be nicely equipped with instruments that I could continue to increase my knowledge of the offshore work approach and teach the kids.
And that was obviously a big thing, to have school support behind you.
Yes.
And that culture maybe of parents and also other classroom teachers being able to, and understanding why, the value of music in the classroom.
And I knew that Unley Primary School, the music program was well supported by the leadership and staff at the school and the parents.
And without that leadership, I guess it is particularly difficult in this day and age, particularly where you... and once again, I'm not a professional, so I don't know much about it, but it seems to me that the pressure on teachers to provide the curriculum and the 3 Rs that used to be maybe is quite demanding. And so to be able to provide something else for children, and we know that's important for kids to have that varied and wider curriculum, is wonderful to be able to have the opportunity to do that.
At Unley Primary School, we currently have 20 classes, so each class comes to me for 1 hour a week of classroom music lesson, and I am part of the Festival of Music, so I have a Festival of Music choir that we rehearse with Year 6 7s, and we prepare kids ready for the concert series in Term 3. The other big thing at Unley Primary School that was a draw card for me was every 2 years they do a whole school musical. And call us crazy, but we do, with 20 classes, we do 2 casts, several shows. The Year 6 7s are the actors on stage, the 3 4 5s become the chorus, and the reception 1s and 2s are involved in the beginning of the show. So it's a whole school cultural, each 2 years, every 2 years in Term 2, musical time.
Wonderful. And so every student has the opportunity to be part of that.
They do.
Production.
And they aspire for when they're in the older years and get to have some of those lead roles. No, it's great. It's fantastic.
Fantastic. Absolutely wonderful. Susan, what are some of the highlights? What are you really proud of in your time as a music teacher?
I think just how much I've learnt over the years, and about improving my practice in teaching the kids in my classroom. And being in a school for a long period of time, you see them come up through the years, and the few kids that have gone on to other special interest music schools and have done something, that always makes me feel proud to hear how they've gone and what they've done. But also the fact is that now I can share what I've learnt with other people. So through the Offshore Work Association, I'm a presenter at conferences, so I plan ideas that I've had in my classroom and write them up as a unit of work or a lesson plan, and then present that to other teachers at conferences, which is my way of sharing everything I've learnt over the years with other people.
So there's nothing precious about your holding on to what you've heard and learned over the years. You're sharing it.
Yeah, we do. Every conference you go to, you pick up little ideas, but you might not use the whole idea. You think, well, that little piece of, I'll just take that little chunk out of that lesson and that will work with the kids that I teach. And that's the joy about the conferences that you go to. You can take as little as you want from them, to depending on the experiences of the children that you're teaching.
So it's accessible learning.
Very accessible.
Wonderful. Anything else? What do you do in your spare time? Do you have any?
2 years ago, I picked up my violin and joined the Unley Symphony Orchestra.
Wow, how fabulous.
So totally out of my comfort zone, but I find that because music's my day job, I need some music for me. And prior to that, I was singing in a choir, graduate singers, for about 15 years, but needed a change. So out comes the violin, and it's been great. Yeah, I need to practice more, but it's excellent. I also do Japanese drumming, taiko drumming on a weekend, which is my exercise, but that's really lovely as well.
A bit of stress relief maybe with the drumming.
Yes, very, very large drums.
And the mentoring, how does that fit into your time?
So 3 years ago, South Australia was a pilot program for the National Music Teacher Mentoring Program, which is the program founded by Richard Gill, where the aim is to upskill classroom teachers to give them ideas to incorporate more music into their classroom. So I jumped at this opportunity to apply and be involved with. So I've worked at several different schools. The idea is that you go in and meet with the teachers and find out what their strengths are already in teaching music, how much music they use, and just to give them lots of ideas and lesson plans and process teaching so that then they can be supported and have lots of resources to then teach more music in their classrooms.
And that sounds like a really wonderful thing, because I would imagine if you're a music teacher in a primary school, you don't have many other music teachers around you. So to have a go-to person must be a really comforting.
Yeah, especially for classroom teachers to have this contact. And over a couple of years, I've worked with the same school for 3 years now, so just to see the growth in the classroom teachers and their buzz of remembering a particular song or incorporating the music into their classroom. And you can see the joy on the kids' faces when you visit and things like that.
Wonderful. You talk a bit about conferences and the sharing of resources. Is there anything in the last 12 months or so that you've found that have supported you either professionally or personally and helped you grow in some ways?
So a resource that I've discovered over the last couple of years, Richie Gill put out 3 nursery rhyme and song books, which are fantastic. So one's called Twinkle Twinkle, one's called Little Star, and one's called How I Wonder. And they're all nursery rhymes from when I was a child growing up with Patsy Biscoe. So these have kind of been revamped into books, and it's got beautiful narrators, and members of the Sydney Symphony Orchestra have provided the music. So it's orchestral accompaniment to these beautifully sung nursery rhymes, and it's just really nice music to listen to. And the resource has lesson plans and ideas, and they talk about listening to the music and what to listen for. So for example, a particular song, listen for the bassoon as it plays this particular sound. Or so it's all about music comprehension and a lot about listening.
Wonderful. And if you could design your whole music school program with no limitations of any kind, that dream stuff, what would you like to see?
Well, I'm very lucky here at Unley that I do get to teach all the students in the school. So they have 1 hour a week and a Festival of Music choir. But given my ultimate dream would be, in addition to classroom music lessons, each student would be involved in some kind of ensemble, regular ensemble, whether it be singing in a choir or playing in a percussion ensemble or a school band. I believe great importance in being part of an ensemble, because it pulls together what you've been working towards, being part of a team. It's just really important.
Now, we're in your classroom at the moment, which is a beautiful space. Is there a motto or a statement up here on the wall? And there are a few of them, but which one in particular would you point out as meaning the most to you?
The other year I bought some posters from some famous singers, and there's one in my room at the moment from Lord, and it says, "Don't tell me the sky's the limit when there are footprints on the moon." And to me that means kids take risks. You might not be the best musician, but if you have a go, there's nothing stopping you from being involved when you come to the music room. You can always challenge yourself and be involved at a level that you're comfortable and happy to be involved in.
Wonderfully affirming. Wonderful. And is there one big idea? I know this is hard and there mightn't be, but have you just one big idea that you'd like the listener to take away from this podcast?
I guess I didn't go to the conservatorium to learn how to be a music teacher. I've become a classroom teacher first, and I really appreciate that I have been a classroom teacher and have had experience being a classroom teacher, and then learnt how to become a music teacher by attending professional development in my own time. So I'm a big learn by doing person, and I guess my big idea is that we're all lifelong learners and there's still so much to learn.
That's a lovely spot to end on. Susan, thank you so much for giving us your time today, particularly as I know what a busy lady and mother you are. We really appreciate it, and I'm sure our podcast listeners have been as encouraged and inspired by your story as I am. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Music Loop has been brought to you by the Australian Society for Music Education, SA Chapter, and through the support of the Music Education Strategy Innovation Funding. You can subscribe to Music Loop asmesa.libsyn.com, asmesa.libsyn.com. If you have any feedback or would like further information about this episode, you can connect with Music Loop via email musicloop@asme.edu.au or join the discussion on ASME SA Facebook page. Show notes about how to connect and information about the episode are at asme.edu.au/SA. I'm Chris Narraway and this has been Music Loop. Reach out, connect, be inspired.